Gam's journey. Gam was a 14-year-old girl, innocent and cheerful, with a bright, carefree smile that always lit up her face. Although her family was not wealthy and life was filled with many hardships, she always felt loved and protected by her parents, who tried to bring her happiness despite all the challenges. But then tragedy struck unexpectedly and mercilessly. Her mother suddenly passed away from a serious illness, and shortly afterward, her father died in an accident. Everything happened so fast and so suddenly, leaving her young heart shattered, with an emptiness nothing could fill. Losing her parents, Gam lived alone in an empty, cold house. In those early days, she seemed to sink into a deep sorrow, unwilling to speak to anyone, refusing to eat, and only sitting quietly in a corner. Trying to hold back her tears, many times she would sit by the river in her village, where she used to walk with her parents, gazing silently at the flowing water, her mind filled with memories of joyful times with her mother and father. She missed her mother's gentle voice, her father's warm hands, and those happy moments that had now become distant memories. Seeing her alone and orphaned, her neighbors, moved by pity, often brought food over. When Gam didn't want to eat, they patiently comforted and encouraged her. Thanks to the support of those around her, Gam gradually began to stand on her own. She learned to cook, wash clothes, clean the house, and take care of herself. These tasks might seem simple to adults, but for a 14-year-old who had just lost everything, it took immense effort and courage. One day, her teacher visited, seeing her sitting quietly by the window, eyes filled with sadness, gazing into the distance. The teacher gently approached and asked how she was doing. When the teacher kindly encouraged her, advising her to be strong and continue her studies, Gam couldn't hold back her tears and sobbed, I don't know what I'm living for anymore, teacher. There's no one beside me anymore. Her teacher looked at her with compassionate eyes, too choked up to respond. Over time, teachers and friends continuously supported Gam in her studies, providing emotional comfort so she wouldn't feel alone. Thanks to the timely love and assistance of everyone around her, the flame of hope in her heart was gradually rekindled. Slowly, Gam found joy in learning again. She realized that although she had lost her family, love still existed in the warm hearts around her. And she was determined to study hard, aiming to succeed and honor her parents' memory, as well as to repay the kindness of those who had stood by her. Years went by, and from a fragile, lonely girl, Gam grew stronger, overcoming her grief to become a teacher in the very school she loved. Every day, she stood at the podium, teaching with all her heart, filled with genuine compassion and dedication. With students facing hardships, she felt a profound empathy. She wasn't just a teacher, she was a source of encouragement, passing on strength to her students, much like the support she had once received. Looking into the innocent, hopeful eyes of her students, Gam saw herself, once a small, lost girl who had thought she'd lost everything. Yet, thanks to the kind hands that had reached out to her, she was able to rise, move forward, and find meaning in life. From then on, she dreamed of doing something to help other unfortunate children so no one would have to endure pain alone as she had. With determination and a sincere heart, Gam called for donations from kind-hearted people in the community to establish a shelter, a loving home where orphan children without a place to go could live together under one warm roof. In that home, they were not only cared for and loved, but also engaged in meaningful work for the community. To understand the value and purpose of life, it became a real family. And the children were nurtured with love and hope, learning to share and to live with gratitude. Every day, Gam and the children tended small gardens, cared for plants, read together, studied, and shared stories of joy and sorrow. For her, it was not just a shelter, but a foundation where each child could grow, develop, and one day contribute positively to society. Under the warm sunlight of the village, the children in Gam's shelter always smiled brightly, filled with optimism. Gam stood by, watching them, her heart brimming with happiness. She had found the true meaning of her life, not just to live, but to give love, to build a safe haven for those fragile hearts in need. The losses and pain she had once endured had now become her strength, her motivation to continue loving and helping others. Gam's story is not just one of resilience in the face of loss. It's a story of human kindness, of the power of love and sharing. Her compassionate heart changed her life and brought hope to countless other lives. And she knew that love would always be her guiding light, an endless source of strength on this meaningful path.
Vocabulary words with definitions and examples from the story Gam's journey. 1. Innocent, pure, without malice or wrongdoing. Example: GM was an innocent girl, always smiling and spreading happiness wherever she went. 2. Mercilessly, without pity or compassion, cruelly. Example: the storm raged mercilessly, destroying everything in its path. 3. Shattered, broken into pieces, deeply upset or emotionally destroyed. Example: GM's heart was shattered after the loss of her parents. 4. Emptiness, a feeling of nothingness, sadness, or lack of fulfillment. Example: after her parents' death, GM felt a deep emptiness that no one could fill. 5. Pity, a feeling of sorrow and compassion caused by the suffering of others. Example: the neighbors looked at GM with pity, knowing the loss she had endured. 6. Courage, the ability to confront fear, pain, or adversity with bravery. Example: despite her grief, GM found the courage to continue with her studies. 7. Choked up, to become emotional and unable to speak clearly because of strong feelings. Example: her teacher was choked up with emotion as GM expressed her pain. 8. Empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. Example: GM felt deep empathy for her students, knowing what it was like to face hardship. 9. Grief, deep sorrow, especially caused by the loss of someone or something. Example: GM's grief was overwhelming at first, but she slowly learned to cope with it. 10. Nurtured, taken care of, supported or encouraged to grow and develop. Example: in the shelter, GM nurtured the children, helping them heal from their losses. 11. Foundation, the basis or groundwork for something, an underlying principle or system. Example: GM built her shelter as a foundation for children to find love and support. 12. Resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. Example: GM's resilience helped her overcome her pain and build a better future for herself and others. 13. Gratitude, a feeling of thankfulness and appreciation. Example: the children in GM's shelter learned to live with gratitude for the kindness they received. 14. Contribute, to give or add something, time, effort, or resources, to a common cause or purpose. Example: GM wanted to contribute to the community by helping orphan children. 15. Optimism, a positive attitude or outlook on life, expecting good things to happen. Example: the children in the shelter smiled brightly, filled with optimism about their future. Phrases with definitions and examples from the Story Game's journey. 1. Sink into sorrow, to fall deeply into sadness or grief. Example: after losing her parents, GM seemed to sink into sorrow and isolation. 2. Stand on her own, to become independent, able to take care of oneself. Example: thanks to the support from her neighbors, GM gradually learned to stand on her own. 3. Hold back tears, to try to prevent oneself from crying. Example: GM sat quietly by the window, trying to hold back tears as she remembered her parents. 4. Light up her face, to brighten someone's appearance with joy or happiness. Example: GM's bright smile would light up her face even in the hardest of times. 5. Filled with empathy, to feel a deep understanding and compassion for someone else's pain or situation. Example: GM was filled with empathy for the children she helped, as she had once been in their position. 6. Rekindled the flame of hope, to revive or restore hope or optimism. Example: the kindness of her teacher rekindled the flame of hope in GM's heart. 7. Overcome grief, to deal with and eventually heal from sorrow or loss. Example: over time, GM was able to overcome her grief and find a new purpose in life. 8. Live with gratitude, to appreciate what one has and express thankfulness for it. Example: the children in GM's shelter were taught to live with gratitude despite their past hardships. 9. A source of encouragement, a person or thing that inspires or supports others to keep going. Example: GM became a source of encouragement for her students, just as others had been for her. 10. Found meaning in life, to discover a purpose or direction in life after hardship. Example: through helping others, GM found meaning in life and turned her pain into strength.